Heavenly Father, God, thank you so much for this time. And God, we pray that you would just bless this podcast, that you would help us to honor you, to love our wives and families, be able to provide for them. And God, we trust you in this endeavor. It's always been your endeavor anyways, but Father, may you use it to your glory, and may we have a lot of fun. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. We are testing out our new show, Triple Play, with Scott and I. So if you're somebody who's watching this, we value your opinion, so please give us some feedback. Also, don't be afraid to like and subscribe. Our YouTube channel will also be on Rumble soon, and we hope that you guys will help us in this endeavor as we enjoy sports, faith, and culture. Which all three are things that we enjoy together. We're both sportsaholics. We're both men of faith that undergird everything we do, and we both are passionate about wanting to see our world become a good place, a place where the Lord is honored. So, anyways, I want to thank you for that. So, with that being said, let's jump into today. So, one of the things you're going to notice about Triple Play, and I want to do this kind of as an intro thing for us as we're playing around with this, is we're going to do a lot of things by three. 3 is going to be our magic number a lot. We like 3. 3 homers are always better, but we'll take 3 triple plays. So today, Triple Play, we're going to have 3 sports headlines from the last 24 hours, and we're going to start out with number 1. Number 1, Mr. Scott Correa.
Yep.
This is a guy who last year signed a 2-year deal with the Twins, had an opt-out clause, opted out. Had a solid year for the Twins. I think he hit 22, 23 home runs last year. Batted around 280 or something like that, if I remember right. Maybe 290. But again, there was a lot of shortstops on the market last year. Didn't find himself with the contract that he wanted, so he kind of signed on a deal that was palatable for him. If he didn't find something better this offseason or didn't think he could, I think it was with the Twins. I can't remember. It had an opt-out. I can't remember if it was a 2 or 4 or 5-year deal, but it had an opt-out after 1 year, which obviously he exercised. And and then he finds a home with the Giants. The Giants then do their due diligence as a physical. Normally, those things are just kind of done and over with, but this time around, they're not. Now, of course, this is a big contract. This is a guy they had signed for 13 years, $350 million. That's a long time to invest in a player, a lot of money. Giants have been known to spend money in the past, but this is certainly one of the biggest contracts I know that they've ever spent. And so obviously they wanted to make sure that they were investing well. I think that the scare there is they just look across the bay to some degree and look at the Angels. They signed Albert 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Albert signed, and he never was the player that he was with St. Louis. And so I think that, upon that, you want to do your due diligence. So they do their due diligence. They have some questions. From what Scott Boras says, they give them kind of this window to figure out their problem. They try to bring in some doctors and such to kind of get some reassurances. Doesn't quite meet the time frame. So then Scott goes and talks to some other teams, and now he, through all that last night, signs with the Mets. So the Mets come in, swoop him up, $325 million, 12 years.
Yeah, so only 12 years. So you're going to have to stick around for the 13th
year. Yeah, for $325. But, so apparently the physical is not a problem with them. On the flip side, I mean, that kind of wraps up them spending an awful lot of money. Let me look at this here real quick, because this is very interesting about them as well. So they not only go in and sign, but they sign $806 million worth of contracts in just the past 2 weeks. That is a lot of money for a new owner to be spending.
Well, he's a new owner, but he's not new to money. I mean, the guy makes money for a living.
I know, but that's a lot of money to spend on a lot of contracts. I mean, you look at some of these guys too. It's not like they're young players. They went out and got Scherzer. Scherzer's not a young player. He's had some injuries the last few years. He's still a very, very good pitcher. Hasn't really been the off-season pitcher. I should say postseason pitcher that he was with the Nationals. The Dodgers. It seems like he kind of struggled with them. And then even the Mets last year, he wasn't the unhittable guy that he seemed to be when he was with the Nationals. several years back, but I like him. He's a St. Louis guy, and obviously being from St. Louis, I'm definitely a Scherzer fan. In fact, I remember the guy who I leased my office from forever played golf on Thursdays with Scherzer's dad. And when he was looking at signing a long-term contract before he signed with the Nationals, I was teasing him. I said, "Is St. Louis going to sign him?" And he said, "I didn't tell him who he should sign with. I just said he can't sign with the Cubs." So
why is because he grew up in St. Louis area?
Man. Yeah. So, but they already got Scherzer. Then they go out in this offseason. They pick up Brandon Nimmo. Got a good outfielder. I like Nimmo. He's a solid player day in, day out. He's not a sexy player, but he's a good player. They go out and they get Edwin Diaz. Sign an older pitcher, but I mean, last year he takes, he's a horse that rides you to the World Series, Justin Verlander. I mean, is there a guy that's been in the World Series as a pitcher more than him? Maybe Adam Wainwright. I mean, there's just not too many that have been as many World Series as that guy. He seems to make them quite a bit between the Astros.
Well, he gets them there, but I mean,
yeah, he's won a few though. He's won with the Astros.
Yes, he's won them because baseball's a team sport. But I mean, if you look at Verlander's postseason career, he doesn't ever get mentioned in the same breath as Kershaw. And Kershaw's record and ERA and everything's better than Verlander's in the postseason. Have you heard one thing about Verlander's postseason ever?
No, that's you don't really. That's funny that you don't really hear about that when you think about it. That's a good point. I'll have to look up his postseason record to check that out because that's very interesting. I'll have to compare that to Kershaw. Kershaw, the thing about him is he kind of always gets killed by St. Louis. I mean, for some reason, St. Louis has had his number over the years.
Well, yeah, he's had 3 bad innings. I mean, all his runs came in groups. It was like 1 bad inning one season, 1 bad inning another season, 1 bad inning another
one
season.
bad inning may be all it takes. I mean, I got him out of the postseason a couple times when they had really good teams when you were there. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had your infamous Joe Kelly standing. We won that playoff, but that was you guys were actually a better team. There was no doubt on paper. Sure. You guys were the team to beat. So
you were saying the Mets, a lot of money.
Yeah.
We're
not done with all that. Hold on here. Now
Steve Cohen has $16 billion to his name.
Yeah, but he goes out and signs Kadoe Senga, the guy from the Korean or Japanese guy. Mm-hmm. He signs Jose Quintera, the guy who the Cardinals had as their number 1 pitcher going into postseason last year and had a great second half for us. And then Omar Narvaez, Adam Ottavino, David Robinson, and then they go out and get Correa. I mean, they were already a good team last year. They really only had 1 subtraction, okay, which was a big pitcher, right? I mean, they lost on trying to keep him. He goes down to the Rangers, right? Mm-hmm. So they go out and get a consolation prize and picking up Verlander.
That's a huge loss.
Yeah,
That's a huge loss.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, think
about
one
of the best pitchers in baseball, right?
Yeah, so last 4 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah, so definitely a huge loss, but still a lot of money spent. So now Correa, what are your thoughts, on Correa, and what are your thoughts on the Mets?
Well, I mean, yes, they did add guys, but Nimmo already there. Diaz already there. Adam Ottavino, tail end of his career. David Robertson, way tail end of his career. You are adding Correa. I think that is the big thing that you are adding. But you lost the similar type player, but for a pitcher.
Yeah. Well, and I would even say I read this earlier today that their average pitching staff age right now is over 35. Yeah. So I think I read that somewhere. So I mean, that definitely tells you they're investing in older players.
Yeah, I mean, and you think about all of last year. What did you hear? Mets. They're so good. And then gone, done. So it's like, yeah, you can spend all this money, but you have to spend it on the players that are going to form a group, and a group that will last the entire year.
Well, and I actually want to question the Correa spending. I mean, honestly, I really think that is an overpay because let's look at him. He's a good shortstop, mm-hmm. right? There's no doubt about that. He plays shortstop, but he's also not young. I mean, he's been around now for a few years. He's not 24.
But
25.
In baseball, they pay you for what you've done. They don't. I mean, if really, I mean, in baseball, they paid you for the projected. Like his projection is not going to be this, and the next 10 years.
Well, but I even say is in 5 years. Let's say halfway through this contract, do you expect this guy to be an all-star shortstop defensively? Do you expect this guy right now? Last year he had, I think he had 20. What did he have last year? 138. No, I don't have it on here. I think last year he hit 22 homers, if I remember right. He batted around 290. Okay, is that a guy that you invest 12 years in? $325 million.
That's a guy that Steve Cohen would.
I know. I kind of wanted the Cardinals to get him initially when they were first going in off season and trade for a catcher. And my thought was he'd be a guy who could play a couple years at short, and then when Macy would come over, they can move him over to first base, and then Goldie could move into the DH spot. Okay, but I wonder, and then I look over at first base for the Mets, and they've got a great, first baseman. He's a great hitter. He was in a home run hitting contest. Mm-hmm. He's a solid hitter year in and year out. You're not going to move him there.
He's 28, and he had 22 homers last year. Hit 290.
There you go.
So, yeah, that's a ton of money for that kind of production. But also, he's had really good years. So.
Yeah, but again, that doesn't mean
20. Yeah, he's a 20 homer guy.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. A shortstop hitting 20 homers. The Cardinals had that in Paul DeYoung just a few years ago. They have it right
Forrest
now.
Knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I was gonna say. You look at
that's all you can say, really.
Here, I want to look at something real quick because I just want to compare him to what the Cardinals have.
But you're paying for a winner. Really, right?
Yeah.
He's a guy that was on a team that had been winning for the last 6 years. So you're paying for a winner. He has that attitude, whatever it is, brings it to the clubhouse every day. So.
All right. So let's look at this though. Okay. Last year, regular season, we got a guy who hits 265, 13 home runs, and wins a Gold Glove. Mm-hmm. Okay? All right. Tommy Edmonds probably going to make $1 million something this year. So, I just go back and say.
No, I think I just saw he signed for like 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So he signed already, for the year. All right, $3.5 million. That's a long ways from a 12-year, $325 million contract. Is my point. How many shortstops? Honestly, in today's day and age, you got Jeter, right? All right. Take away Jeter. Name a shortstop that's been that productive over 10 to 12 years in the last 10 years. That's just one of those.
Corey Seager.
Well, okay. Fair enough.
Corey Seager. Aldremon Simmons, who was with the Angels for a while. I don't know what he's up to these days, but he was good for 8-10 years with the
but you get what
Braves
I'm saying.
And then the Angels. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of shortstops. Yeah. It's not I think as a baseball team, one of the things I learned about the Cardinals over the years is that shortstop and second aren't areas that you typically need to invest big money in. It seems like if you can get a good first baseman, a third baseman, and they tend to stick around and be premium players a lot longer than a shortstop. I don't know if it's the ankles, the speed, just the natural position. It's easier to put young, cheap guys up the center of that field. But it seems like, you think about the Cardinals' great years, and I think about other teams. I'm using the Cardinals because that's who I grew up on. But if you really look at a lot of these teams that go to the World Series, they typically have a good first baseman, a good third baseman. I call it the diamond, or they got a good center fielder typically, and they got a good catcher, right? If you get those positions, then you can have a less than stellar left fielder, right fielder, second and short. You got that's how you get somebody like David Eckstein, who's an MVP of the World Series, right? David Eckstein, if you go back and watch his reels, he struggled throwing from short to first, but Albert could stretch out. You had Roland playing over, so all of a sudden Eckstein's field that he had to cover in a position he had to play shortened up very much, and then he had a fairly athletic second baseman at times. You got at one point. What's his name that we picked up from the Cubs? That was our second baseman. We had him for 2 years in that period of time, and he was really good. I guess my point is the Cardinals kind of showed that. It seems like a lot of teams have built off of that. I think about teams out there, and I look at winning teams, and typically I find they have a first baseman, a third baseman, a center fielder, and sometimes it's a right fielder, but usually it's a very athletic center fielder a lot of times, and a catcher. And then they usually have 2 or 3 good pitchers that they can ride on in a good bullpen that's serviceable.
I think you're right. that a majority of those positions do produce the guys that you typically see in the big spots. But I think, whether it's third base or a shortstop or right field or left field, or if it's your catcher, I mean, you need like 2 or 3 guys that hit homers,
yeah,
and doubles and RBIs, and then everybody else just get on base, please. Just get on base all the time. Like, I don't care if you hit 220, but if you're on base and you're at a 350 clip, what do I care how you get on base? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Hey.
So I think there's a formula.
Right
there's a formula that has been proven over time that produces runs, and it doesn't necessarily need to be third and first and center, but you need a good mix of those things that I stated, and you need guys that keep guys off the bases.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Well, let's move on to another team. We kind of touched on them a little bit. The Angels. The Angels signed Drury to a 2-year, $17 million deal. I really like this move. It's not a long-term contract. He kind of peaked last year. He's had a couple decent years. Last year, 138 games, 28 homers, bats .263 with a .320/.492 split, 31 doubles, 87 RBIs, played between the Reds and the Padres, and he's 30 years old, so he'll be 32 when his contract's over. Nothing sexy about that deal for sure, but it is a deal that helps a team that already has a couple of good players. They have Mike Trout, right? So they've got probably
Shohei.
Yeah. And I was going to say one of the interesting players, because the guy both pitches and hits. Mm-hmm. So you got a guy who can hit and pitch. And then you throw in a guy like this. I mean, you were just saying it. A guy gets on base. This guy seems to get on base. One of the things I like about him, and I noticed this, I was looking it up, he's .299 the last couple of years with 12 homers against lefties. So he's found a way to hit lefties later in his career. Mm-hmm. So this might be a good fit. He's also very versatile in the infield. He's played everything, not necessarily a shortstop, but he's certainly played everything. And then I look at the Angels, and here they've signed him. They go out and get Jared Walsh. Third baseman is Anthony Rendon, and he's a guy that's he kind of had an off year last year, dealt with a little bit of injury, but when he's healthy, he seems to produce. You've still got David Fletcher, Levon Soto. There's some good. They've got a good mix of infielders, I guess is my point. So this guy's going to get plenty of playing time. He'll mix around. He should get some at bats.
Didn't the Angels start really well last year? Am I remembering that right? Like the first month they were like.
Yeah, they were. I mean, So came out and did pretty good. Trout was healthy.
I want to say they were like 15-6 or something, and then there was like something happened, and it just was like
Trout got hurt.
Was that it?
Yeah, When Trout gets hurt, that team. So you got to have more than one bat in that lineup, and on top of that, then you had Rendon get hurt too. Mm-hmm. You had their third baseman, their outfielder, dealing with some nagging injuries, and so I think that's what you're thinking. I think that's why they also wanted to get some flexibility. That's why a guy like they just signed there, this guy, he can play third base. So if Rendon needs a few days off, this is an excellent infielder. Again, if you've got a guy who can play every position, you can kind of mix around. Bats .299 against the lefties, right? Mm-hmm. And last year hit 28 homers with 80-something RBIs.
But that's a big field in Anaheim.
That's true.
If you're playing your home games in Anaheim as a righty, I mean, I think I can't even imagine if Trout played in Chicago or Milwaukee, like. He would have stupid numbers.
Well, I've often thought about this. If he played in the Yankee Stadium,
it's just absurd. They need that. I know they have a formula, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but like, where you play your home games matters.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And so I want to finish up with the Angels, though. This is a club for sale, but they still went out and picked up, I think, a couple solid players. They picked up Tyler Anderson. 3-year deal, $39 million, and Carlos Estevez, 2-year deal with $13.5. Neither one of those are names that people, if you're not an avid watcher of the sport, probably doesn't mean much to you. Those are kind of under radar signings. They're solid signings. Those are the kind of players. Anderson's a lefty. You're going to get some solid numbers out of those guys. None of those are the kind of guys where you're going to go, wow, but they didn't need wow factor. I mean, they already had they've already got Trout, they've already got pitching, and they've already got some hitting. They need those complementary guys. You got to have. They're kind of the opposite of like the Cardinals. You know, the Cardinals have a bunch of pitchers that are, I consider 3, 4, 5 guys. Maybe a number 2 if Montgomery takes a step forward, but they don't have a legit ace. Angels have a legit ace and actually kind of a young guy kind of developing underneath him, and then they have nothing behind him. And then you've got, in their lineup, you got Trout, Rendon, and then you got nobody else. I mean, the Cardinals
Rendon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Rendon.
You have to correct me on names
That's
throughout
fine.
this because I'm terrible at it.
You're good.
My wife
You gotta
said that.
roll your R's sometimes.
All right. Well, you do that.
I'll teach you. We'll go.
There you go. Well, but with him, I mean, again, they've got bats in that lineup. They've got a solid, middle of core when they're healthy. So,
Yeah.
This is a team that just lacks complementary players, which is why I say these signings were good signings. This was another good signing. One of the things I think that the Angels have done wrong is they've tried to go and fill in a lot of gaps with guys who are on the latter part of their career, okay? I think of like a Justin Upton, okay? They go out and get Justin Upton. It wasn't that Upton was a bad player, but that money is better spent on a guy, just like we just saw on a Drury, on a much shorter deal, okay? But a guy who has much more upside than the downside of Upton at that part of his career. I mean, after that, he never really. He wasn't a terrible outfielder. He was a decent outfielder.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the bat that he was at one point. And I think it's better to bring in those young guys sometimes like that.
Matters where you play.
What matters where you play.
Think about where Upton got to enjoy his first
part of his
7
career?
or 8 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Arizona.
Yeah.
And then he went to Anaheim, and it's harder to hit. And then when you don't hit them as much, you start going, hey, can I still hit these things?
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, it wasn't that he hit bad. He still had, I think almost 30 home runs one season. But I guess my point is you're paying a guy, $20 million, $30 million sometimes to hit these kind of home runs, and you go maybe put that money versus having one older player who is going to have these up and down years.
Yeah.
Versus getting a young guy who's going to give you maybe not 30 homers, but maybe, let's say this guy has a slight down year next year and hits 25 homers and bats, 275, but they've only got, 17 mil, so divided by 2. I mean, not even 10 mil a season into this guy. So now that money gets put into a better reliever, another better starter to help complement your team.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, I think, sometimes not necessarily always getting the older guy with the name. Sometimes it matters to have those, but I think sometimes also having these young guys who I call fringe players. Okay, they're complementary pieces. Without them, you don't win World Series. Okay.
Oui.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the Cardinals' good teams over the years. We had plenty of those. So we had a good mix of some old ones, and the Beltrons and the Berkmans, but we also had the Freezes and guys like that. David Eckstein. None of those guys were premiums. They weren't tops in their fields, but they were serviceable. They did a good job, and we actually had fairly good contracts with them. We didn't pay them large amounts of money. Now, moving on to number 3. So this is our third headline here, and this is more of just an acknowledgement, but Judge named the 16th Yankee captain. So
how many Yankee captains can you name?
Not very many.
Jeter?
Yeah, I know what Jeter, and then
Mattingly?
Oh man, Mattingly was great.
I can't think of anybody else. I mean, obviously,
I'm sure
they've been
Rodriguez
around for a while.
probably was at one point. Don't you think?
I hope not. Don't get me started on that guy.
Well,
please.
let's talk about Judge though. Okay, so this guy is back to being a Yankee. I thought that was a smart move for him. A, because he's beloved there. B, that short porch on the left side. To me, it kind of reminds me of Albert when he left St. Louis. He never had the power. I often wonder if he would have stayed and he would have had the same field at Busch Stadium, what those homers would have looked like. Mm-hmm. As you said, field matters. I think the fans matter. Okay, I mean, Albert. Anytime he came, I mean, I think that there's a lot to be said. So Judge going back there makes a lot of sense. He is the leader of that team. But you and I have also talked about a few things about Judge. One is that frame, okay?
It's a big man.
He's a big man, and what are your thoughts? Is this a guy who's going to...
Well, he's been hurt, right? He's already been hurt. He was hurt in his early 20s. He was hurt in his mid-20s. I can't imagine him getting smaller, going from 6'9" to 6'4". I think he's going to be 6'9" for a while. How long can he carry around 275 pounds?
Yeah, that is a very good question. And running in the outfield. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean,
Randy Johnson did it. I mean, but he was throwing from a stationary position, and he weighed 112 pounds. So,
well, and here's the thing I have about Judge. Okay, now they got this big contract. It's not that he can't bat, but is this a guy that you keep in your outfield, or is this a guy maybe you start to convert to a first baseman? Because that's really one of my thoughts I've had about him. Because if he were to move to first base, then maybe that prolongs his career. You don't have to run around. I think about that a lot with King Griffey Jr. So I grew up idolizing King Griffey Jr. Had one of the sweetest swings in all of baseball, in my opinion. Love watching his swing. Amazing to this day. Iconic. I mean, we've seen logos with it. He goes to the Reds, and not too many years into that contract, pops his Achilles heel running in an outfield. Okay? Same thing, you look at the Cardinals. We kind of had the same thing, a very similar injury with Matt Holliday. Matt Holliday is a premier outfielder, gets a little bit older, running around that outfield. Eventually, he hurt those lower legs.
big guy.
Yeah, big guy. And so you think about those kind of guys, if they transition to first base, would Matt Holliday have played another 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, but don't discount how hard it is to make that turn. To make that transition.
Well,
Judge has been playing.
You've been in outfield and a first
Judge
base.
has been playing outfield for his entire life.
Okay.
And so just to say I'm gonna be, I'm getting old. Let me just go try first base. It's not that hard.
Well, he's not going to do that. The team would say, "Hey, we signed you 300 million, whatever it was."
Yeah, but I'm just saying, where is he gonna put that time in? Is he gonna be willing to say, "Oh yeah, I'll go to the field 2 hours early so I can work on ground balls every day this season, so that maybe next year I can play first base"?
Yeah.
That's a hard convincing. I think,
true, and he's the captain of the team.
Yeah, and I think it's just easier for him to say, "I'm going to play outfield. I don't really want to go play first."
Well,
this is what I know.
I will say this about the Yankee Stadium: it is a shorter outfield. We already talked about why he hit so many home runs there. So maybe there isn't as much to coverage. Maybe it won't. Maybe that'll help him out a little bit. But that's always been my concern. That weight on that frame. In the outfield especially, it seems like those guys get somewhere between age 34 to 36. Obviously, he's going to be playing well beyond that with this contract. And, at that point, it seems once they pop their Achilles heel or hurt that lower leg, hitters never seem to recover. It seems like that zaps. You take a guy like King Griffey, it takes him from 40 home runs down to 18 to 22. And you're paying a guy, premium amounts of money like a Judge that's going to be getting paid. He's going to be making $40 million a year to hit 15, 16, 18 home runs maybe towards the end of that.
And teams know that. I mean, the Yankees aren't dumb. They know what they're paying for is not going to be what they get, but they have to pay him that. You can't sign Judge for $150 million. That's not going to happen.
That is
true.
So
they have to eat a lot of money knowing that probably the last 2 or 3 years of that contract, they're just going to have to swallow.
Well, the other thing that you might have and that happened too, and we saw this with Albert this year with St. Louis, is that they, at the end of their career, they're breaking records. Right? They're climbing up those reams, and so there are
there are
those
perks.
celebrations.
Yeah, there's perks.
And the team makes money off of that,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you put those celebration T-shirts out there, jerseys, cups, whatever. People go buy them by the millions, right? Because they want to celebrate with this player these accomplishments, and so I actually look at St. Louis got one of the best deals in the world this last year. I mean, St. Louis got a good deal with Albert in his first 11 years. He was never paid what he was worth in baseball terms. He comes back, he signs a $1 or $2 million deal. It was very minimal, and he has a great second half, goes out, but he also crosses that threshold, right? In home runs, he climbs up there, RBIs, and all these different reams that he's going up, and they get all that money off of that. I mean, it doesn't take that many T-shirts to make, when you're selling millions of them, to make $10 a pop to easily make up that salary. So that was a good deal for them. So good thing he didn't retire at the middle of the season. He props to him for keeping up. So, all right. Well, that ends our sports segment. Now I want to hit you up with a little bit of our, faith segment, all right? So, 3 Christmas traditions. I was thinking of 3 things that are kind of unique, and especially to this year. So, let's start out with number 1. Do you guys do presents Christmas Day or Christmas Eve?
So, our tradition is we do presents Christmas morn.
Okay.
But we let the kids open one present Christmas evening before bed.
That is awesome. We do something similar. We typically do stockings Christmas Eve and let them do that.
Okay.
And then we do presents Christmas morning. So we're very similar on that.
All right.
All right. The other thing I do that with my family, I don't know if you guys do this, but we always hop in our car and go around and we listen to Christmas music and we look at lights.
In the morning?
No, we do it at night.
The night before, or just any night.
You know what? We typically do it from like this year, probably Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and we'll probably do it throughout next week until New Year's. We typically do about a week's worth. We'll pick a part of a neighborhood or part of an area, maybe in West County, maybe towards the city.
Do you guys vote on your favorite section or your favorite house that you've seen?
No.
Are you going to add that to your tradition just because I brought it up?
No. No, we don't do that, but we do. One of the things we love to do is we love to go compare. We do like to compare different houses and different sections, especially if they've been hyped up. Okay, like if you get a house that's been, everybody's online, they're saying, oh, this is the house, and you go look at it, and it's like, got like 3 lights and a little bit of music that shows to in your car, and you're like, okay, this is nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's disappointing.
That's disappointing.
Yeah.
And so but if they're like amazing, you got to get out of the car, and everybody's like, wow, this is just really cool.
Have you ever been to Candy Cane Lane?
Of course. Who hasn't in St. Louis been to Candy Cane Lane? Have you been there?
Yeah, I've been there. The street across the street from Candy Cane Lane is
really
starting to
cool
pop.
too.
Yeah, they're starting to take over.
Yeah.
Whatever that street name is going to be the new Candy Cane Lane.
You know what I found interesting this year is a lot of the favorite ones that we like aren't doing it this year. So there was one that this family was doing that was out by Wild Horse Creek roadways. Okay, I guess not Wild Horse Creek Road, but if you take Manchester down towards where it kind of becomes Pacific, right by that
109?
Yeah, well, it's past 109.
Okay.
Okay, you're going to keep going out a little ways, probably about another 3 miles past 109. Before it starts winding back into the Gray Summit area, there's a veterinarian place there. Yeah, like little vet there. And on the right, there's this corner house, and they had a big display every year that they did. You kind of drove through it, and they're not doing it this year. There was another one.
Why not?
I don't know. There was one in our neighborhood.
Maybe they're going on vacation.
Called Candy. Okay, so the one over there is Candy Cane Lane. The one in our neighborhood was, I think, Candyland Lane. Okay, and they did a great display. Not doing it this year. I mean, we would sit there and rock out to the music and watch them, and their neighbors' houses all light up. Okay, there was another one over in St. Charles where this couple had probably no short of 2,000 blow-ups and things, and you just kind of walk. You actually got out of your car and would walk through their yard and their around, and it was
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was really, really cool.
Wow.
Not doing it this year, so I have not seen as many cool displays. I don't know what it is. I was trying to figure out, is it because how the Christmas is falling this year, or was it because of the weather? Just because maybe the economic terms, but very interesting. But we do love looking at lights, and we definitely have our favorites.
Electricity costs a lot more money these days.
That is true. That's why I said maybe it's cost and the time and energy. You know, people are working 2 jobs to try to make the bills pay. Maybe they don't have the time to put all that up this year. I'm not sure of it. It's definitely.
It's got to be. They were probably thinking about doing it, and then they thought, "Man, I really don't want to have to clean this up this year."
Could be.
Right?
Could be.
That would be so annoying to have to clean all that up.
All of it up, yeah. Well, it was cool though. I mean, everybody comes to your house.
But
yeah, it's fun. I think
I'm not saying it's not fun, but maybe they're saying, let's take a break this year.
Yeah, I hope so, because a lot of those I like. I hope they do come back in the next few years, because we've enjoyed them over the years. It's been some of our favorites to check out.
Are you going to bring up the bonus round we got?
Nope, we got one more question. We got 3, right? Those are 2.
Yeah.
Three is one you and I talked about the other day, and I
this.
thought this is a good question. Okay, and I've had this with a few people, a few friends, and so some people I know right now. So the question is Christmas service the eve or the day? So I've got friends of mine who are doing Christmas Eve and not going to go to church on Christmas Day. I got other friends of mine going to church on Christmas Day. They're not going to do Eve. I got friends that are going to do both. You got our church who is doing Friday night, and they're not going to do Christmas Eve, but they're kind of doing a Friday night Christmas Eve. My brother-in-law's church is doing a Friday night and a Saturday during the day, so it's not really a Christmas Eve night show. It's a day show. So there's a lot of different churches doing different things. What are your thoughts? What if you in a world of Scotty, what would you do? What is now? You don't have to be right. This is not judgmental to our church or anybody else listening. So, what is your thoughts?
I like Christmas Eve services.
Okay.
I've never done a Christmas Day service, so that kind of ekes me out. Not ekes me out. It kind of makes me go. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around taking that day away from families.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on how you see church. Is it a family event that you go to church, or is this an individual event? One of the things I think about Christmas Day services is I don't think it's time, and this is my personal opinion, if you're going to do a Christmas Day service, it's not a time to send your kids to Sunday school.
Yeah, I will agree with that.
If you're going to do church on Christmas Day, I think it's a time where the family stays together. I think it should not be a service that's long. I think it should be almost like a Christmas Eve service where we really just celebrate a couple things. We have some great Christmas songs. I love Christmas songs, especially during the holidays. There's nothing better than Christmas songs during the holidays, in my opinion. But also, I enjoy hearing the story of Christ in different formats. Okay, I mean, in our church, we've been going through the Book of John. I've heard some great formats of the gospel of Christ, looked through not just from a manger, okay, but also from, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and He was with God in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And breaking down that John section into the gospel presentation, and how Jesus is from the very first through that. Okay, so I've heard some different really cool stories used over Christmas over the years, and I think something like that, where the kids can get into it. Keep it short, because if you're going to have kids in a service, you can't do some long-winded service,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids are going to get they want to be home too, right? I mean, let's be honest. So I think, if you're going to do a Christmas Day service, I think, something like 20, 30 minutes of good Christmas songs, and then 20 minutes of preaching tops, maybe even 15 minutes of the Christmas story, and then out the door. Not to be rude, but people want to get home. They want to enjoy their family. That's really just something to complement that day. We've always done it on one of our traditions at our home. Was we usually read the Christmas story or acted out or did something with the Christmas story, maybe watched a video of the Christmas story on Christmas Day as part of our thing as a family. So I kind of look at this as being that part of our Christmas Day. But that said, every church is a little different. Have you ever done midnight mass or something like that?
I have. Yeah, I did midnight mass when I was like 10 with some family friends.
Yeah, what'd you think of that?
It was interesting. I think it was at a Catholic church.
Yeah, so you got to kind of, it was a little more
very
ritualistic,
yes,
probably.
very, very ritualistic. There was the singing was I don't know how to describe it, but like dead. Like the lyrics didn't match the feeling in the room.
Where'd you go? Did you know what church
I have
was
no
it?
idea.
Okay.
I have no idea.
So I did the one that's right across from SLU a couple times, and I lived in a city in college, and I used to enjoy that. Just because it was, that was one of the things I thought from evangelical churches that we kind of missed, was that Christmas Eve service like that. We used to do a candlelight service, but we always kind of did it early in the evening. It'd be like a 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I really thought it was cool that they meet up at like a 10:30 or 11 and do this midnight type mass where it ends right at midnight or.
I always have around Christmas time, I have to answer questions like this. I am very, I think that obviously Jesus being born is to be celebrated, but it's not ordained. It's not like an event that God said to celebrate, like a festival or, like these type of scenarios it was brought about by the Catholic Church and became a human tradition. I think if we were to celebrate, I think we need to somehow mishmash Christmas and Easter together. Because I think that's the celebration, is His resurrection.
Absolutely. This is the birth, death, and resurrection, right? So I think that we miss that at Christmas if we don't talk about that. I would agree with that. I talk about that with my own kids, how, this is just the start of what became our salvation, right? Mm-hmm. So Jesus was born, it had a start, and it had a start with a virgin. I said there's some really cool things that we can learn from the story, which is, like one of them is that we immediately see in the beginning of Jesus' personal story with humanity, his love for adoption. Because his own dad adopted him, right? So Joseph had to adopt Jesus as his son and treat him as his son, right? And so we immediately see the idea of adoption, okay? And then there's so many other unique pieces that are built to that story. And then one of the things that always hits me too was that even his own brothers did not quite believe in. They're seeing some of these miracles, but they were.
Well, they didn't believe till after he was resurrected.
Exactly. Yeah, and then you get one of my favorite books in the Bible, the Book of James, right? So, and he would go on to become nicknamed Camel Knees. For those who don't know, James in the Bible, he had a nickname through time. He was called Camel Knees because he was known for his prayer life. He became very prayerful.
Did he pray on his camel?
On his knees. And his knees became very callous, like the camel hump.
Ah, okay.
So that's why they called him Camel Knees, because his knees became very big and bulgy. Because he would literally spend hours on his knees, so they had these big calluses and kind of became like the humps of a camel. So he became known as Camel Knees, was his nickname for praying so much. Which then, when you understand that, then go read James, and you understand when it says something like the tongue can start a fire. With our tongue, we can bless our Lord or curse the creation He made. Right? Your tongue is like a small rudder to a boat. It steers the whole body. Okay, only a guy who spends a lot of time in prayer could say things like that, right? I mean, if you really think about it, you really got to be a prayerful person to really understand the power of the tongue. Because it's in the silence that you understand the motivation of words. I always tell people, words have power when you don't speak them. You ever be around somebody who doesn't speak a lot and just kind of looks, and then when he does speak, everybody in the room pays attention. I had this question the other day on Twitter, and this is a great example where I'm branching off from this a little bit, but it was kind of interesting. The question on Twitter was, do you think that cursing is bad on Twitter, or so on and so forth? And there was all these different replies. And my reply was simply, a curse word, when used all the time, has very little value. But if you're a man who never speaks, and then you say something like that, it snaps everybody around you to attention when it's out of the ordinary. Okay? When you say a word that is not normally in your vocabulary, and it pops out, okay, and you're not somebody who's known for that, everybody pays attention. And I said, so there's power in words and how we use them, or how little we use them. And I said, I think in curse words in today's culture, many of them have become washed down because we hear them so much. We've taken the value of really their meaning. I mean, the idea behind a swear word was kind of like this curse that you were kind of say, right, on somebody or something. And now people use them so much that they're
it's like, whatever, man.
It has their value has very little, so people just kind of shrug them off. But the only time we give them value is when they're said in front of children. Why?
First time.
Yeah. The value of words. Right? Because they don't normally hear them. They don't normally speak them. It's not something that's in their everyday vocabulary, hopefully, as young kids. So, and so when they hear them, there's value in them. Okay? And so I say that with James, he understood the value of words. And that's why he was able to say, be slow to anger, slow to speak. You know?
Quick to listen.
Quick to listen, absolutely. Watch what you say with your mouth. Your tongue steers the whole body. So wise words, but all that to say that he grew up in the same house with Jesus and saw this crazy kid become the Messiah, and it took him resurrecting, which is why, coming back to your point, just the birth isn't enough convincing. Okay? There are lots of people who claim to be spiritual who have been born. A lot of them died. But how many of them resurrected? And not only resurrected, but we're seen by so many. I mean, that was one of the things about Jesus, too, is that he hung around for 40 days after being resurrected and was seen by
Have you ever heard the story? So when Jesus died and there was a great earthquake and it became dark, right? There's a Chinese emperor from that exact period of time, that exact moment in time, wrote down in his king's journal or the emperor's journal that at such and such time the whole earth went dark for 3 hours.
Yeah. Did you know it's also in the Roman? Well,
It's recorded history from some emperor thousands of miles away.
Well, and there's actually even hundreds of miles away. You get Rome. Rome reports a lot of this. Yeah. Okay, I mean, Jesus was on Golgotha where the resurrection, but the world saw that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting when people try to discount the Bible. Like they'll say, well, how do you know Jesus was really who he said he was? Well, there's a lot of historic evidence. There's a ton out there. There are literally hundreds of different history people from that time period who have documented Christ.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now they don't give the same stories like the gospel. A lot of them are short things. Like there's one of them who says something to the such as, there was a man named Jesus who many in Jerusalem thought was Messiah. He did many miraculous signs and wonders to which none of us Romans could explain. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then he's
historically documented. You can't deny he existed.
Well, he's more historically documented than George Washington.
Yeah, he existed. And then the people that he was trying to convince that he was God and the savior of the world, the only thing for 3 years that they could charge him with was blasphemy, saying that he was God. If a person was crazy walking around for 3 years, there would be some other claim. That guy lies, that guy stole my donkey, something. Yeah. The only thing is, he's saying he's the son of God. We got to kill him. That was the one thing they could pin on him.
Yep, that was it. Yep, that is 100% true. All right, well, bonus round here. So we're going to go to one more thing before we get rid of today. And I know that you saw this the other day because we were talking about it. And so I wanted your critique, review of Avatar 2. Give me 3 good things about Avatar.
Ooh. Okay, one good thing, it was visually stunning.
Okay.
Like the 3D effects, the color schemes, everything. But I walked away and it was like, I was thinking of having to answer this question, what do you think of Avatar 2? And the one word I thought of, it was sad. It was a sad movie, and I'll explain. If this movie was made like 25 years ago, okay? 25 years ago, the humans would be being attacked by the blue people, and we'd be cheering for the humans. And now, 25 years later, the humans are attacking the blue people, and the blue people are fighting back, and they're killing the humans, and we're cheering for the blue people. We're like we made the human race the enemy in our movies now.
Well, sure.
I was thinking about this during the movie. I was like, what am I watching? Like, I'm cheering for humans to get slaughtered.
Well, you knew that the director has definitely not been shy about his point of this next set of Avatar movies. So, yeah, I wasn't exactly thrilled about wanting to go see it. That's why I was going to wait till it comes out on video, and I'll probably pay like $4 to watch it a year from now. I agree. I mean, the first one was so amazing to me visually, and I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the acting. I enjoyed a lot of the characters in it. In fact, I took my whole office at the time. I think I went and saw it like 2 or 3 times. I don't usually go to theaters very often. So if I go to a theater to see a movie 2 or 3 times, it has to be great because I don't know the last time I was at a theater.
Right.
I mean, it might have been 2 or 3 years ago. I just don't go very often. That's not an everyday occurrence to me. So when I go and I see something like that, I really just thought that'd be the reason I'd want to go. Yeah. I enjoyed the planet that they're a part of. I enjoyed the culture they built behind these blue people of Avatar. I enjoy some of the actors. I'm a big Sam. One of the main characters is played by Sam Worthington. I think is his name. I like him. He's been in several good movies that I've liked beyond just the Avatar movies. I think he's made himself into a relatively good actor, though I don't think he's as big of a name as a lot of people, which is really interesting to me because he seems to be, in my opinion, a really good actor. So I'm not sure what's causing him not to get better.
Probably the Avatar films.
I don't know.
He probably got he's probably got to spend a lot of time making that movie.
Yeah,
it's been years in the making.
Yeah, he did. I'm trying to think. There was a movie where he did not too long ago, and I say not too long ago. It's been a few years now, but where he was on the ledge of of a building, and his brother is trying to get the evidence for him because he was unjustly thrown in jail. And I'm trying to look it up here while we're looking real quick so I can maybe figure it out, because I thought it was really an entertaining movie, one of the better ones I've seen. That
so they basically worship animals in that movie. They worship a tree.
Man on a Ledge. That's what it's called. Man on a Ledge. And if you haven't seen it, I haven't seen that one. It was really interesting. It was a fun movie. He basically gets on this ledge. He winds up on this ledge where he's going to throw himself off the building.
I don't do ledges very well. So if the whole movie is him on a ledge.
No, the whole movie is not him on a ledge.
All right.
The whole movie is really him at times on the ledge.
Okay. His
brother is played by Jamie Bell.
Yeah,
another decent actor. He was Billy Elliot, if you ever saw the movie Billy Elliot. So he's on this ledge, and Jamie Bell and who is it? There's a gal there. They break into a building next door, and they tried to. So his character is accused of stealing a diamond. Okay. But nobody ever found it, and a diamond is still around. The guy who accused him always had it.
Really?
He used it as an insurance claim.
Spoiler alert!
I know. I'm giving it away.
But you should have seen it by now.
Yeah, exactly. It's been around for years. Yeah. So, but it has a lot of good actors. It has Anthony Mackie in it, if you know him.
Yeah, I know that guy.
Okay. William Sadler.
I know him.
He's done a lot of movies for Cowboy. So a good one. Then Sam went on and did the Titan movies. Clash of the Titans, Wrath of the Titans.
Yeah.
Those were pretty good.
Yeah, I like those.
Okay.
Entertaining.
Yep. He did Drift. Now, he played a different character in Sabotage. That was a very interesting one because it also had Arnold Schwarzenegger.
My Clash of the Titans. Like, there's Titans, but who are we rooting for? The man, right? Half god, half man. But if that movie was made today, we'd be rooting for the human to die. Probably.
He did Hacksaw Ridge. Anyways, he's done a lot of good movies, but he just isn't, I guess he's not, I would have thought by now he would have made a bigger name for himself, but maybe he's just selective in his movies too. What he wants, he looks for good parts. So
Avatar's making like 3, 4, and 5, right?
Yeah.
That's what I heard. So maybe that he's just
hitched
his cart to that wagon.
Yeah, that very well could be.